Hi, it's Andy.
Hi, it's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Welcome to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. Now, today we are going to check out a band who some would say made the right decision to retire a few years back, and some would say, why the hell did they retire when everyone else in their peer group has carried on going? But we're basically going to be checking out some Slayer! And we're going to be checking out a song called Bloodline. No more really needs to be said. Let's go check it out. We're going to share our thoughts and feelings at the end. Let's do it. Okay, there we go, Slayer and Bloodline. I just need to make a quick correction because I said I thought it was off of Repentless, and obviously it wasn't. It was off of God Hates Us All.
God Hates Us
the
All.
one that came off after Diabolus in Musica, which was the one that everyone, well, most Slayer fans really hated because it went kind of too new metal-y. And that was the last video we did, which was Stain of Mind, which was would have been probably one of the singles before this. But this came out in 2001. I think I probably thought it was Repentless because that was the... This came out on God Hates Us All, which had Paul Bustaff on drums, and Repentless was the next one that had it. So, but yeah, so there you go. I want to go with Andy first on this because you've not really been a Slayer guy. You were never really a big fan of them or anything like that. So yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts on this track.
was a big Slayer fan going back to, Show No Mercy and Hell Awaits.
Yeah.
And Raining Blood, obviously. Tuned out after South of Heaven, to be honest. Don't think I've heard anything after that period of the time, apart from the occasional sort of music video. I certainly haven't heard this track before. And I think I'm kind of not really regretting my decision to not sort of follow the band, really, because they've certainly, in this period, I don't know how things were sort of later on and more up to date, but they're just lacking the sort of the extremity and the frosty of what I remember of the Slayer albums that I love. Obviously they've grown as a band and grown as an entity and musicians and songwriters and everything, but that just didn't really grab me. That sounded like sort of what I'd expect from sort of post South of Heaven, Raining Blood, Slayer from 2000s onwards. So that hasn't sort of changed my mind for, as maybe checking out some of these albums that I've not heard before. But it's a decent enough track. I really like the video for what was basically a performance video with very few sort of other shots. That worked really well with the sort of probably the three different settings for the band. The blood, the suits, and just the normal sort of performance. One thing I will say, Tom Aray's vocals are unmistakable. There's nobody who sort of tries to replicate what he does, as far as I know. Other sort of famous vocalists and established legends in metal vocals, people sort of replicate and emulate and try and sound like, but I don't think there's anybody who tries to sort of, project their vocals like Tom Araya does. So that's one thing that, is very positive you can take from the band. There's a sort of cool main riff, sort of, it did get your head banging and everything, but it's, sort of fairly formulaic. Kerry King's solo was terrible. It might have sounded slightly better if you picked a different pedal, but he's produced some great solos and some great riffs on the earlier Slayer stuff I like, but that was not great in my opinion. But that's really all I can say, to be honest, without sort of being too negative. It was a sort of kind of what I expected, from that period of Slayer. Nothing too intense, nothing too ferocious. It was Slayer.
Do we think, before I get to you, Kirk, on this one, do you think that Slayer have had the same problem of what happened with In Flames? So their intensity of their first couple of albums, and then they've changed their kind of direction. They've taken elements of their early stuff, but then they've adjusted, they've morphed, they've got it. And then because people really fell in love with these bands early on, they haven't had that period of a couple of early albums where people are still just finding them and take them a time to build up. They've gone in quite early on and were adopted really quickly. People love them for that sound. And the problem is they've gone off and they've kind of changed their sound as they've matured, and they can't really go back and just go off and do another Raining Blood, because they'll be like, well, that's not them anymore. They can't, or they'd just be called that they're copying. The only band that's probably done from start to finish and sounds pretty much the same is someone like Megadeth, who you listen to early Megadeth, you listen to later Megadeth, you're like, yeah, they're pretty similar. There hasn't really been that much growth in that area. But I don't know, did we think that could be one of the challenges that a band like Slayer had? Kirk, I'll throw that to you.
Yeah, good. You raise a good question there. I think you've called it right. So Slayer have been in steady decline ever since, really. Seasons in the Abyss, that great 1990 album that heralds in a new decade. I did enjoy the 1994 album, Divine Intervention. I think that's so underrated, and they're still a thrash band by that point. Two things stand out for me about Slayer in the 90s and early 2000s. One, they're brave enough out of the big four to engage with the way mainstream metal's going, the heavier side. Pantera, Machine Head, and nu metal. So they're at least they deserve respect. You do have to engage with that. You can't just be writing Hell Awaits Part 2 in 1997. That would just be ridiculous. So it does take some courage to do that. And with that comes tremendous risk. The second thing I would say as well, when I say they've been in steady decline, Andy's, again, called it right. They've not really been an extreme metal band since Divine Intervention. You still got songs like Dizzlehead, which were just so out of place in 1994. It's thrash metal, hardcore. It's really violent. You get to Diabolos in music, and you get to this. I remember buying this album in 2001. I love track number 1, the title track. It's one of the best songs I've ever written because there's some real good thrash moments in that. And there's no thrash metal in that. There's no extremity. There's actually not that much aggression. What there is, though, is one of the best choruses they've ever written. So they actually start to demonstrate that they are going to allow a bit of melody to creep into their music. I think that's a good chorus. You hear that once, and you could easily, it lodges in your brain. You can memorize that. The guitar solo obviously was atrocious, but guitar solos were out of fashion in 2001. So Slayer are really at the mercy of trends in heavy guitar music, and they know they need to stay relevant. But there's also a great opportunity, and this is where they need to be thankful to nu metal. Nu metal is the ultimate gateway into extreme metal. So when you see bands like Slipknot selling records, that is only ever a good thing for Slayer and Morbid Angel and and Obituary and bands like that, because you might have kids who are age 14, they listen to Slipknot, and then they go to Pig Destroyer, and then they go on to Slayer and all these bands. So there's a great opportunity there. I don't think they've got dollar signals, at the back of their eyes, but they know they need to be relevant. They're brave enough to do it. They just don't pull it off. That compared with Heavyweights and Rain in Blood, you wouldn't even think it was the same band, would you? It's basically groove metal, which groove metal is essentially just post-thrash metal in the 90s. Guitars are tuned down. The songs are a lot slower. They're still as heavy, but in different ways. So, Andy, not surprised by your analysis, and I'm like you, I've not followed them. Well, I haven't actually followed them since this album.
I think it's what's interesting for me with Slayer is one of the few bands where album sales didn't dictate their position on a festival bill. They could come out and they could headline any festival, any metal festival, be, yeah, Slayer, you can go and headline it. And they would pack it out with Slayer fans. Slayer had a diehard fan base that even if they put out a shit album, they're like, fuck it, don't care. They're still going to play Heavyweights and Rain in Blood live, so I don't give a fuck. I'm going to that gig because they're fucking awesome. And they could go out and literally put out a fucking Nursery Rhymes album. They'll be like, it's shit. Still going to buy it. I'm going to put it over there, and I'm still going to go to the festival. And it's hardly any other band out there could do that. If they have a shitty album goes out and it's badly received, they do drop down the festival. Probably Metallica is probably one of the only other ones that can do it. And I think probably Slayer retiring when they did managed to secure their legacy of being what they were. Would they, if they'd carried on going for much longer, would they have damaged that legacy of another album, or could they have ever turned it around? I don't know. We may never know on that one. But obviously, Kerry King's got his new act coming out, new material. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what Kerry King, and he has said it's very going to be Slayer-esque. So it will be interesting to see what happens there. But there you go, Slayer and Bloodline. Now, if you enjoyed our video today, please do like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the video sometime very soon. Take care.